The Valley Current.
Welcome into the Valley Current.
There you are.
There I am. And I'm so delighted to have you join the podcast because I've only been asking you to do this for like the last 10 years.
Yes.
And you're always too busy because you're always trying these big whale cases. And I keep saying,
not true.
You can't do this forever, man. You got to make a little bit of time to talk.
Don't oversell the product here.
So Ed, just for a few minutes, give folks the background. Give folks the background of how you came to Silicon Valley, because I think it's a rich story.
I came to Silicon Valley when I was 10 years old because my father was a double E, and he was working for Western Electric and Bell Labs.
In Palo Alto, right?
No, in Sunnyvale. Down there where National Semiconductor is. But there was nothing there then. It was all orchards. And,
right.
So I went to school there and grew up in that environment and went off to Berkeley for college. And in the course of growing up in the 60s, I had a certain amount of social good sensibility. So I went to law school to save the world. Little did I know, when I entered law school, that all it's about is money, And if you want to save the world, all you really do is save the money.
Usually the funny story about law school is it's very frustrating because you think you're going to save the world, but then you take a course like Trusts and Estates, which is all about accumulating money. And in the afternoon, you take another course about antitrust, which is all about breaking up the trusts.
Well, that was one of the things, like when I was at Hastings, I used to volunteer at the Haight Ashbury Legal Clinic.
Okay.
And basically what that did for me is I learned how to keep any deadbeat who was not paying their rent in their apartment for 18 months at least after they saw me.
Wow.
And I used to really enjoy that because I used to tick off the opposing counsel. I would just say it to him. I say flat, I said, look, here's the deal. You can mess around here and I'll keep this tied up for 18 months at least.
You're a law student. You're a law student talking this way. You're a law student talking this way.
Yeah. And or alternatively, we can make a deal that my guy likes. What do you want to do?
and the guy's like, do I have to get down on my knees?
Yeah, right. I always had kneepads in my briefcase.
That's pretty funny. So you learned how to litigate as a street fighter.
Yeah.
You were a street fighter.
Well, I tried to be. Well, so what happened was that there was a famous local litigator named Fred Firth came to our class to the school and did a presentation about big litigation. He had one of probably the premier plaintiffs antitrust firm in the country at that time.
Right, I remember him. I do. Actually, you remember him.
Yeah, and I was completely bowled over. So at the end of my second year, I went over there and to get a summer clerkship with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pretty wild case, but eventually I got it. During that period of time, I was in 2 trials. I was
as a summer clerk.
As a summer clerk,
oh,
I was in first chair with 2 trials. When I was in 2 trials, Willie Brown was lead counsel on one of them. I did all the jury instruction eliminate motions, and I got to argue them, even though I wasn't yet admitted to the bar or graduated from school. So I went up on the learning curve for trial preparation real fast and real hard.
Is that how you met Judge Kelleher and he offered his daughter to you?
No, how did you meet? She was a year behind me in law school.
Okay. Because that's the Kelleher of King and Kelleher is you and your wife, right? That's a rare feat to pull off. I have to tell you, that's very rare.
Hey, I'm a street fighter, man. That's what I do. I do crazy stuff.
My parents were married right up to death, and they used to fight every day of the week. They just didn't get divorced. Their attitude was, we're Catholic. We can't get divorced. But we hate each other.
One of my theories of my ability to do patent cases, because I understand engineers, because my dad was an engineer. And of course, he and my mother couldn't exchange 2 words to their entire marriage because he's an engineer. So I understand that when you're going into court, you got to get down where people live.
He was talking in code and your mom was talking in English.
To the extent that he talked at all. He was talking but
So
we both took, what's the, begins with the F, what's the early code?
Fortran.
Fortran. We
Fortran.
both took Fortran together, my father and I.
Wow.
I was in 8th grade and he was in wherever he was in.
Wow. So he probably bought you a little personal computer when they first came out, right?
He did not. Personal computers came out when I was in college. We didn't do anything. Small world there, though. One of my friends at Berkeley was Wozniak's sister.
Oh, okay.
Leslie. And she had a lot of snide things to say about that whole operation, but that's not here and there for today.
Well, you know that Jobs and Wozniak came into what was then Davis, Stafford, Kellman, and Fenwick to start the company up because they were operating in a general partnership with a third guy that they wanted to get rid of, which they did get rid of. This is all public information. I'm not revealing any secrets here. And like idiots, we didn't take the 5% they were willing to give us legal fees. That's another story for another time. But so Ed, you went to law school, you did well. You clerked, and I think you then clerked for a federal judge, didn't you?
I clerked for, actually, I went to work first at the Firth firm. Okay. And it took me about a year to 18 months to figure out that I didn't really want to carry people's bags. Okay. So I figured out I couldn't figure out what to do. And I found out I clerked at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for Judge Chambers. Okay. Because his clerk quit in the middle of a deal, middle of the year. And then he liked me quite well and set me up with clerkship with Judge Tom Murphy of the Southern District of New York.
Oh, nice.
And Murphy was tremendous. Both those guys were great men to work with.
That's a great mentorship. You have a 1-2 punch mentorship that no one else.
Well, Murphy was the prosecutor of Aldra Hiss. Right. Yeah. I know that. And so I know that. And with Murphy, we went to lunch every day. Wow. Nice. So that was fun. And educational. So then after that, I came out and I was trying to figure out what to do. And I got a job with a couple of partner level people that one was the general litigation counsel for Northrop and the other one was general counsel for Martin Marietta. Okay. So this looked like a pretty good opportunity. Right. I was their first associate in San Francisco. My deal was, they were a small firm. I was a little scared about small firms because I had been a small firm previously. And I said, so I'll do the deal, but I have to be the highest paid associate in San Francisco. Okay. So I made $3,000 more than everybody else. Really? A year? Fun. $3,000 more a year? Yeah. What did you start at? Like 20,000? No, 48. 48,000? That high? Yeah. As a first year associate? Well, no, because I had the clerkships. Oh, okay. So you were like a third year associate. Yeah. Maybe fourth year. I mean, who knows? I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, when I started at Davis Stafford, it was 22,000 a year. I put in 3,000 hours and tried 4 cases in my first year. And they were like, yeah, we'll give you maybe like a $2,000 bonus. Yeah. It was insulting. It was insulting. It was like med school. The young people were just there to be exploited. Right. But I was already been exploited. So I recognize exploitation. And so I said, this is what it's going to be. And it took me about 3 months to realize I wasn't going to work out there. Then it was just a matter of figuring out too. But I was involved in some very, very high profile cases. Right. The 2 big cases, one was an antitrust case that had to do with the teaming agreements for the stealth bomber. And I had to get a special clearance to be able to do anything and all that kind of stuff. Right. And the other big case I had to do was representing Synanon. If you remember, Synanon suing everybody in the world and for defamation. And I got involved with that. Those were the two things I did. They were really great experiences to be there. But there was still the problem of that, I was too far down the totem pole. Yeah. I mean, I was given a lot of responsibility and not nearly enough authority. This is 1980 timeframe, right? 1980s? Yes. Okay. So I quit the job there. And in 1983, in April of 83, I started my own firm. You just had your 40th year anniversary then. Yeah. Right? Yeah, you're a math major. That's pretty amazing. 40th year anniversary, that's pretty amazing to me. So at any rate, I started my own firm. I had a contingency fee case, which was a pretty big, high profile case in San Francisco. We settled the case. I thought I was rich because I got all this money in this settlement, and I had no business. I had money in the bank account and no business. And so, interesting kind of thing here. I invented representing sports people against their agents for stealing their money.
Okay.
No one was doing that. All the guys in sports were Mickey Mouse guys that wanted to wear gold chains and ride in limousines. I was a real lawyer.
And snort coke.
Yeah, right.
Put that in.
But I mean, it was shooting fish in a barrel because I was a real lawyer. So what happens is I start my own firm. I get this money. I got nothing to do, and I'm freaking out because I'm going to run out of money eventually. So it was I got a great piece of advice. Talked to this fellow, tried to recruit me for his little firm, and I didn't want to do what he was doing. I was thinking I might have to take the job because I had to have some money.
Right.
And I said, I'm trying to decide whether to just go out my own and go for it or not. And he said, well, here's the deal, Ed. If you go on your own and you fail, what do? You go get a job. You got a good resume. You're going to get a job in a heartbeat. So why, if that's what you really want to do, why are you going to screw around with me? And that's what happened. And about 6 months after I ran out of business, I'd been working with a tax attorney that I'd known for quite a long time. And he came up with a tax shelter. Some San Francisco Giants baseball players were involved in some tax shelter scams, and they were getting disallowed to have all this back taxes owed.
Right.
I got the case. That case made the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Wow, nice.
In 1985, I think the case made the Wall Street Journal. That pretty much gets you business. You know,
there you go. You got to put an ad. You got to put an ad in the Wall Street Journal. That'll do it, right?
It's better if they put the ad in.
They put the ad in.
Yeah. So anyway,
by the way, so just stop here for a second. Do you have a scrapbook for the 40 years that you put in as a San Francisco attorney?
I have occasional scrap, but I don't have a scrapbook.
I have a scrapbook, or I had a scrapbook that literally was from the June 1985 start, because I was at Davis Stafford, and then it became Fenwick, blah, 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 Fenwick and West. And I had to put in a lot more time transitioning. It's a separate story, transitioning the stuff that I was working on, because I was managing like 6 or 8 associates. And I had a scrapbook that I started in 1985, and I had it right up to like last year, a couple of years ago, and I can't find it. And I'm really annoyed about it. It's got to be somewhere.
I can relate to your tape.
This thick. It was like this thick.
I had a tape of my first TV appearance with Lee Steinberg and Harry Edwards.
Nice.
And who was the guy here in town? I don't know, one of the sportscaster guys. And I had the tape of it, and it was great.
Oh man, you need that. You're very photogenic, Ed.
I can't find it.
You're very photogenic, Ed.
I know. That's I've been told that my whole life.
For a guy that's 59 years old, you're very photogenic.
For how much?
59. so
within the order of magnitude.
I'm just curious, when is your birthday, given that the start of the firm was, your start of your firm was April of 1983? What month is your birthday? Huh?
1952.
What month?
January 23rd.
January 23rd. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
So at any rate, being an enterprising kind of guy, one of the things I did immediately after I got the Wall Street Journal article,
right?
I started looking at, and because I was involved in sports, it was about being involved in sports, I looked around at all the CLEs and conventions and sports lawyers conventions. I called them all and said, "Hey, I'm the god. You want me to come there and speak?"
Had you gone to UCLA in the last year that I was at UCLA, they had a guy who taught an advanced elective class in sports law and sports representation. Yeah. A big chubby guy that used to play football that became a lawyer. His last name is Slaughter. He might still be around. He was like a famous football player, and he basically retired from football, no brain injuries to at least he didn't reveal any. And he knew the ins and outs of everything to do with representation of especially football players, but he expanded it to everything, baseball.
Well, he couldn't be that big because I never sued him.
No, but he was teaching at UCLA, and
I'm just saying,
discipline called sports law, and it was emerging. It was an emerging discipline back then.
So I sent all this stuff out, and basically I would get these speaking engagements, and a speaking engagement was worth about $250,000 to me.
Wow!
Because everywhere I went, I would get within 3 months, I'd get a case out of it.
That's beautiful. Wow!
So I was smoking. I mean, I was like 35 years old, and I was up to 6 lawyers working for me and all this stuff.
Were you married at that point? Had you formed King and Kelleher?
I got married at 35, so it's a little ways away still.
So you were a wealthy guy at the time you got married. That's interesting.
No, I wasn't wealthy. I wasn't wealthy enough.
I won't ask.
I was making money.
I won't ask if you had a prenup. I'll leave that off.
Yeah, right. So I got to do some really fun stuff. Flying all over the country. I was featured in a BBC thing on the Business of Sports in America.
Okay.
And I was there were 5 people featured. I was one of them, and I was the commentator through the whole thing.
Okay.
It was filmed down at SC, and that was fun. So I used to, part of my speech, I say, look, here's how it works. If I call you, better answer your phone. That's just how it works, okay? And most of the people all these people go to all these conventions and meetings, kind of like a network.
Right.
No one's networking with the people that are attending. The network is the guys who are talking.
Right. Right.
So I became special counsel to the NBA Players Association. I was special counsel to the NCAA and special counsel to the NFLPA. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm running around with all kinds of, rich celebrity people. And it was pretty boring after the first week, but it was good work. But like one of the things I did, one of my favorite stories was a guy named Bruce Allen. His father was George Allen, was the coach of the Washington, whatever, Indians.
Redskins. They had to change their name now.
Yeah. So anyway, Bruce Allen became an agent because of his father's connections.
Right.
And he was just ripping my guy. He was ripping a lot of guys.
Right.
He was in with Tarkanian, and they were doing all this stuff.
Right.
And what they do is they put people in these investments, and they put the coaches in investments. They put the players in investments. Right. The players all lost money. The coaches all made money.
Right.
And the reason why the coaches made money is because they took the money from the players' investments and handed it to them. And that's how they
classic Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I called them up and I said, look, give my guy a couple $100,000 or I'm going to put you out of business.
And you learned that tactic when you were doing landlord-tenant law.
Exactly.
There you go.
And his lawyer just didn't really believe that. He goes, well, who are you?
Who are you, Mr. King?
Yeah. And I said, well, why don't you do your homework and then call me back next week? And I'm telling you right now, you don't want to mess around. You just want to give my guy his money and we'll go home. So I gave him a deadline. I said, if you don't do this, I'm going to crucify you. So he didn't give us the money on Wednesday. On Thursday morning, I had arranged with the FBI, and the Phoenix newspaper had a banner headline: FBI raids Allen.
That's good.
And that put him out. That put him out of the agent business. And that became one of my closing arguments when with new clients.
Nice. See, you could work easily for another law firm just being their lead generator. Like I
could do a lot of stuff, but you know what? Why would I want to work for another law firm?
I know that's bad. You'd have to work with other lawyers.
I do tell you that. There was a firm. There used to be a big firm called Thielen Marin.
Yeah,
remember that firm.
Yeah,
they put a big rush on me to come over there and do a patent litigation practice for them.
Nice.
And so they had me at lunch, and there's like 15 guys from the IP department there. And
you got so bored you couldn't even imagine.
It's better than that. So we started talking about, well, how do you think you could fit in here? I said, well, it's not a problem like fitting in here. I'll tell you exactly how I fit in here. I hire who I want. I pay him what I want. And
I get rid of all you guys.
because you guys can't, clearly they go, we have a committee for that. I go, no, you don't understand. I said, we're not looking for just, library jocks. We want guys that can make something happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they go, well, I don't know. And I said, well, I don't know either. And I said, but the other thing is, I always, everybody will tell you they'll do whatever you want to do. And they'll say, we'll give you all this money, give you all this resources, give us all this opportunity. But you really don't have much way of enforcing that. So I said, so the only way really that I can feel good about this if we change the name of the firm to King and Thielen. That was the end of the luncheon.
Well, they went out of business, so you made the right choice, right?
Yeah, well, that was fun. So then what happened, what really turned things around, I was doing securities law up the wazoo in the 80s. And I was getting tired of it, getting bored of the celebrity practice.
Okay.
And because what happened, none of the celebrities are educated. Most of them can barely speak English. I mean, it's just that was just really wasn't what I was signing up wanted to do. And if you're gonna barely speak English, you had to be poor. That was my deal.
Okay.
And, so I got bored because all that happened is that with all the athletes, I get calls from the wives. There's no money in the bank, and then show me the money. Show me the money. Yeah, and I had some great things. I had a fellow that he had disabled children, really severely disabled children, cost him a lot of money. And he lost a bunch of money, and he actually took a second mortgage out on his house.
Yep.
To be able to pay me to go after the money for him.
Wow. And
that was a little pressure for me, and I liked that. I like pressure. That's what I like. I thrive on it. But that was an interesting case. But anyway, I was getting tired of it, and what happened is that some of my buddies from the old antitrust days, antitrust, as we all know, antitrust and patents are sort of counterclaim situations.
Right.
I've been involved peripherally in a counterclaim situation when I first started. Right. And these guys from Washington, D.C. said, listen, why don't you, we have this case in the Eastern District of New York, which is a CCD chips case, and all the discovery's back out in Silicon Valley. Why don't you become our local counsel for discovery?
Okay.
And so that's what I did. And I did what I always do. I went wild with it and had some very good results. And then they referred me to a firm, some guys that didn't know what they were doing, had a great case and didn't know what they were doing. And they said, my connections in Washington said, these guys ought to talk to you. They're going to call you. So I call them. So I get these guys. This is unbelievable. I get these guys, and they had a debt relief action filed against them because they had stupidly written these letters in a way that allowed it.
Yeah.
They weren't ready for it.
Right.
And they were offering to settle their claim for $100,000. We will pay you, the defendant, $100,000 to let us get out of this thing. Well, I got in there and I started looking around, and I said to them that you guys are messed up. You got a good case here. Don't do this. And that eventually became 8 figures. And basically, I provide backbone, and that got me into the much more patent stuff. And then the .com debacle in the late 1990s, 2000, at that range. Right. It was an interesting thing. I was flying an airplane. I'm sitting next to this guy, and we're talking about it all. And he says, well, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to all these little R&D companies, and I'm buying up their equipment. Okay. And then, because they're desperate for money, and then I'm reselling it. He said, I'm killing it. I'm making a ton of money. And I said, what are you doing with their patents? Right. And he said, what's a patent? He wanted nothing to do with it. So so at that time I decided to start hustling to try and get some what I call yeoman inventors, guys that invented stuff in their backyard or a little home lab or whatever. And we did pretty well with that. And then I got a few big cases, giant cases from the guys in Washington. I got involved represented Loral Space and Communications for 15 years. And so that covered the overhead pretty well. Percentage-wise, gigantically, successful.
Right.
They're smaller companies, so they don't have, they're going to have giant damages necessarily. But, if you're getting damages that are, in my view anyway, damages that are 8 or 9 times the value of the company, that's a pretty good result.
You were lucky enough to have great success at the front end, because a lot of lawyers are not so lucky when they start their own practice, right?
Well, I mean, all lawyers I know that start their own practice did real well. You don't see the other guys. What I was going to say is that a lot of that is being willing to work and take the risk. I mean, other people with whom I've spoken about this that are seasoned say, well, the deal is you got, no one wants to take the risks that you're willing to take. And like I tell people, I might not get a new case for 3 years. But one of the things I was going to say that was really also made things pretty successful, was that with these yeoman inventors, these little guys, it's a career. I mean, the first case, the first really great case I had of that was we had 25 lawsuits. We sued everybody in the world. When I was representing Loral in the CCD chips case, it was unending amounts of work. So one of the things that, you don't have to have if you're in the patent area, you see when I was doing the security stuff, one of the things I didn't like about it was sort of a volume business. Each case was worth $250,000 in fees, and that's all it was worth. And when it went away, it went away. In the patent cases, the first case may or may not be, whatever it is. Well, I'm on contingency, so you don't really know. But if you have any kind of success in the first case, there are 20 dominoes.
Right. The dominoes will fall rapidly behind the lead case, right?
Au contraire.
No?
No. Both the two biggest cases like that where we had all these guys, one was a hard disk case. We sued 25 companies. The 25th company licensed up without us suing them. The first 24, we had to sue them, and we had to go screw around with them.
Right.
The other case, the jewelry case, I had a case about how to make jewelry thing. And in that case, we sued about 20 guys, maybe more. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. And none of them took a license until we sued them.
Wow.
And we was going to say, look at guys, what are you doing? Everybody else is licensed up. We survived, 4, Markman hearings.
Right.
We know how to do this now. We're going to sue you in San Jose. The judges there love us. What are you doing?
Right.
That was before you had the venue change problem.
Right.
And then after a while of that, I got tired of all that stuff a little bit, and I slowed down and got a little more where I am today, where I work a little less. I don't have. One of the things that drove me crazy was having a lot of employees.
Yeah.
I don't want a lot of employees. I mean, I really don't want a lot of employees because
you've got a team that's sufficient to take the case to trial, and the cases you want are really big cases, right? So,
all you need, look at in a patent case. See, when you do an antitrust case, you have a big antitrust case. You need an army of people,
right?
And you have to go to warehouses and go through all the documents. You got all this shit to do. In a patent case, you don't need an army of people. The only place where you need a lot of people maybe is if the damages is a problem. I mean, if determining the damages, but the damage there isn't. Otherwise, you need 2 smart guys. That's all you need. I mean, I went in a case in Eastern District of Texas. I got there. I got my guy with his cowboy boots and me, 1 associate, and an expert witness.
Nice.
For a Markman hearing. And the other side had 12 lawyers.
Wow.
And we humiliated them. We absolutely humiliated them. That was so funny. Big firm out of Boston. I can't think of the name of it right now. Oh, New York, excuse me. They cited in their Markman documents, they cited Wikipedia as an authority.
Wow.
I mean, wow. To me, it just seems like it's not that hard if you have a modicum of intelligence and you're conscientious and work hard, you're going to be successful. And if you're not successful, then you got to take a hard look at what it is you're not doing.
Right.
And I would say, by successful, I mean I'm getting rich. I mean, but I mean you should be able to live pretty damn well. But I had some terrible experiences with employees. Alcoholics coming to work drunk.
Ouch.
Stuff like that.
Well, that's a little known secret within California and New York and other state bars is about 25% of the lawyers hang out in bars and get probably more than 25%. It's a big number. It's a highly stressful job. So people use self-medication in lots of different
I had a woman lawyer clerked in the Northern District of California, all great resume. She lasted a week because she was a drunk. I mean, she couldn't control herself. And I had no, one of the things you have to do if you're in a smaller firm like that, you can't have any patience. You've got to cut your losses while you can, or else they're going to eat you up. So now I got myself, I have a guy who's worked with me for about, 30 years.
Wow.
He now works on a contract basis rather than employment basis so that he can not feel as burdened by all my demands.
He gets to say no now. Sorry, I'm going fishing.
He has to say no until I guilt him into doing it anyway.
I bet you're good at that. So let me ask a different question, which is,
sure, ask me anything.
Do you see the Silicon Valley scene changing from what you remember of it back, say, before the America Invents Act, for example, 2010?
Okay, here's what I think. I think it is changing because there are a lot more very mature tech companies.
Right.
And the mature tech company is different than a startup or an R&D company.
Right.
It's a completely different culture.
Right.
Just same way that big giant Latham and Watkins is a different culture than King and Kelleher. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things is I do think you're going to see that you'll see the tech stuff spread out. Now, as far as the startup stuff, that's a different story. I had a case. One of my cases, I had to go to Kista, Sweden, the Silicon Valley of Sweden. And Kista, Sweden, Silicon Valley area is about 2 square blocks about. And the Swedes are very proud of this. I mean, and there's these maps you can get that you can get and say, it'll show you the startup and the technology density in different areas.
Right.
Take a look at the map. There's nothing like this. Okay. I mean, there's a reason why it costs horrendous amounts of money to live in very terrible tract housing.
$3,000 a square foot for a cottage in downtown Palo Alto. It's 1,000 square feet.
I'm talking 20 miles from Palo Alto in Newark.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm talking. I mean, but the reason why those houses are going for $1.5 to $2 million now over there in Newark. It's a nice place for lots of people. It's not my taste.
Right.
But anyway, the reason why, because everyone wants to come here. This is where the action is.
Right.
And no matter what the Republicans say about, it's such a terrible place, California. Oh, it's so awful. It's so awful. The crime's out of control, and there's all that stuff. The fact of the matter is, the 5th largest economy in the world. Right. It's got our overhead costs are more, and our pay is hugely more. I mean, we got $20 you get $20 an hour to flip burgers at McDonald's now. You don't get that in Arkansas.
What I don't like, Ed, what I don't like in particular is I remember years ago when you could drive to San Francisco, park on the street, and not have your car broken into. The last time I drove up to San Francisco, my car, which is a very nice Tesla, the rear window was broken into so they could steal some clothes out of the back seat. Not that these clothes are worth a lot of money. And I was admonished by my brilliant Stanford PhD wife, most people don't drive to San Francisco anymore. And they certainly don't park on the street. And they certainly don't park on the street with a brand new Tesla. You're an idiot. I said, thank you for reminding me.
First of all, you had a Tesla, so that's a problem. But beyond that, though, that's transitory. That's a blip. The The street crime, which is property crime, streets, is down 50% from the year ago.
Is it? Is it really down? Is that something that
this happens because we're having a mayoral race? I'm seeing all the stats right now, and
you should have a mayoral race like every year.
Well, what can you do? It gets you some. It keeps them working on the crime problem.
So what did they do? They locked a bunch of people up, or they moved them to some shelters?
One of the things is a lot more presence. They put a lot more cops on the streets. And one of the problems is it's an interesting problem. It's a tough conundrum. They can't pay enough for the people who live here.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Right? So they're having a hard time. Oakland's got the same problem too. They can't. Oakland's like at 60% of their population for cops.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have the cops, if you have more cops, you get them out there, they're visible, then you don't have as many problems. We also have some vigilantism.
But you walk daily, as I recall, you walk daily from your office to your home in San Francisco. I just have to ask this question. Have you ever been mugged or ever been held up? Because I have multiple friends that do walks in San Francisco. I say, yeah, the problem is I got mugged. I lost my cell phone.
I would say about 40 years ago, I was walking to the Superior Courthouse, which is far away from where we are.
Yeah.
And a homeless guy came up to me and asked me for a quarter.
That's it?
And I said, I'm not giving you a quarter. Go away. Leave me alone. And he says, don't be like that. Just give me a quarter. And I said, no, I'm not going to give you a quarter. And he reached into his bib overalls and started pulling out something that was metal and says, I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to cut you.
Really?
So I gave him a quarter and he went away. And that's
called extortion.
He's clearly crazy.
That was extortion. Extortion.
I mean, the thing is, like, I've never been really concerned about crime. I don't perceive myself. I mean, I'm getting old, but in the old days, I didn't perceive myself as a likely victim.
You're tall and you're a big guy like me, but I'm just curious, if you had the ability to have concealed carry on you when that happened 40 years ago, would you have pulled a gun on that guy and said, you know what? This bullet is going to go a lot faster than that knife. Although there are people that think people with knives can actually get to you a lot faster than a bullet.
Well, a couple things. I don't think I would have had a concealed carry in those circumstances. I was going to court.
Yeah.
Number two is that my understanding is that most of the concealed carry people pull their gun and then they can't shoot. They don't have the...
they freeze.
Yeah, they freeze. They don't shoot anybody. So I wouldn't see that. I will say that I do discuss getting guns, but not for the street crime, for the Republicans. What can I tell you? When the Proud Boys come knocking on my door, I don't want to be. I want to be prepared for them.
You need to change the name of the firm to add another K partner, so you could say, "I work for the KKK," which is a big law firm in town.
And then I get a bunch of business. I get a bunch of business from the Republicans that way.
You would. So let me just change the topic once again, which is when you think about what's happening in the litigation circles of the world, where now judges, including mostly federal judges, are setting time limits. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, or what's your view on that?
I think time limit. I think time limits. Reasonably arrived at time limits are a good thing.
Good thing, right?
My very first patent case, I had time limits with a chess clock.
Right.
Most people see one of the beauties of the time limits, the beauties with the local rules, is that it gets you organized and it puts you so you have to do stuff.
Right.
And one of the reasons why a lot of people are not very good at any of this stuff is that they're disorganized. They don't know where they're going.
Right.
So all that stuff. I mean, I've always thought. I mean, they always say, like in the Northern District now, I think it's expected to be 11 or 12 months to Markman. I say Markman should be in 90 days.
Right.
Right. I mean,
earlier the better.
Happen if someone's going to win the Markman.
Right.
And I've always said if I win, that means I made the rules. If I make the rules, I'm going to win the game.
Right. So just for the benefit of the audience, a Markman hearing is where the key patent terms that are subject to some interpretive dispute are going to be actually judicially passed upon to give definitions to terms that may not be exactly well defined in the document itself. It's kind of like parole evidence is not allowed. There's an interpretation issue. Sometimes extrinsic
Let
evidence.
me, wait. In English, what that means is that the patents have words. And let's say the word is blue. They say
Right.
this has to be a blue thing. And then there's a dispute. Somebody says, well, blue's got to be, XYZ wavelengths of light per second. Another one says, no, blue is anything from the range from turquoise to indigo.
Right.
And so then the judge decides what it means. And so if I'm sitting there going, I need this, if I'm arguing for it to be a wavelength of light of whatever blue is, I don't know what it is.
Right.
And I win that, I'm winning that because I know that makes my case.
Right.
And that's why, and there's a case out of Central District footnote, said the judge says every patent case should settle after Markman because clearly someone's going to win and clearly the other guys aren't.
And you're saying, I think, what some people have argued, which is the Markman itself maybe should be subject to some interlocutory appeal if there's an issue about, well, is there a mistake that's been made as a matter of law on the Markman, right?
Well, the thing about that is like you got to look at, I mean, that's really about judicial efficiency. That's not about ultimate justice.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that there's if I'm a judge, I go, well, the Markman might be wrong. We'll try the case. And if the guy who thinks it's wrong wins the case anyway in front of the jury, no harm, no foul.
Right.
So why go tie this up and have this thing strung out for an extra 2 or 3 years? I mean, but this is all sort of plaintiff stuff. I believe justice delayed is justice denied.
Mm-hmm.
I think that IPR is just a Republican plot to slow down plaintiffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things just, the fact that these guys take forever to have a Markman hearing, there's just no excuse for it. There's absolutely no excuse because first of all, there's not that much in a Markman hearing, especially now when they're saying, well, pick 4 terms instead of 20, and that's all you get.
Right. So
you got limitations on how much there is there. And, how it just doesn't take that long to prepare for that many terms. And if the Markman has a chance to be dispositive, which it should 90% of the time, then judicial efficiency is served. And if you're the plaintiff's guy, you're used to winning, then you're served.
Right.
That's what I like.
So you mostly do plaintiff's cases. Will you do a defense case in a patent case? You'll do it.
Yeah.
You'll do a defense case.
I do a defense case a little differently than most defense lawyers.
No, seriously, because I think there are a lot of defendants that think if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, you're forever a plaintiff's lawyer. You're not going to be a defense lawyer.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think that there's a different culture to plaintiff's lawyers than defense lawyers. If you're a plaintiff and you go to some big defense firm, you're going to charge 5 times as much as your work is worth.
Right.
And it may not be that good. I mean, it's hard to say. It depends who it is. It's hard to say. But it's going to be. But the whole culture of a big firm, big defense firm, is let's spend as much money as possible because we have a pyramid, and the guy on top gets a piece of everybody below him. So let's get lots of people below us working on the case.
Right.
I think that as a plaintiff's culture being applied to a defense circumstance works pretty well.
Okay.
And because what the defense culture is, well, we've got to make sure that we button down everything that could possibly happen. And the plaintiff's culture is, I'm going to find a juggler, I'm going to grab a juggler, I'm going to rip it out, and I'm going to stomp on it.
Right.
And so I don't have to worry about the hamstring or the lungs or whatever. I got the juggler. That's all I need. Let's get it. Let's take care of it. Well, that works on the defense side too. I had a very untoward experience where there was an insurance company involved. They wanted me to they said, here's what you want me to do. And they gave me a whole to-do list of how to approach this case. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm going to take this guy's deposition and, maybe that'll take care of the whole thing.
Right.
In fact, that guy, the one deposition took care of the whole thing.
Nice.
But that's not what they do. I mean, it's like when people come to me and they say, well, do you think we can settle this case right away? I said, this is patent cases now. I said, no, the defense firms don't even know what the word settlement means until they build at least $1 million. I mean, that's just how it goes. I mean, and I believe that's what they do.
So Ed, when you do take a defense case, how do you how do you budget for some upside? Because you like to have some aspect on a success
that's one of the things
fee, right?
that's why I don't do very many of them.
Okay.
They're just hourly.
But you got a budget, right? Particularly for insurance companies, if there's insurance.
No, I almost never get involved in insurance companies. There's not.
Okay.
I haven't had any insurance companies on patent cases.
You never had that.
No.
Okay,
there's no insurance. There's no patent infringement insurance.
Okay, so let's pretend you have a patent case where it seems like the plaintiff is trying to ring the bell and win $100 million or more.
Yeah.
And the company comes to you that's been sued. It's a company. It's been sued, and it says, we need a budget. Yep. We don't want to spend more than blank, whatever blank is. What do you do?
Wait. Whatever blank is an important thing.
Okay. Well,
so here's what I would tell them. I would say this. I say, look, if you went to a regular normal firm for this thing, AILPA statistics would show you that the Northern District, this case, is going to be at least $5 million in fees and expenses. That's out of date. It's really going to be $8 million. Okay.
They must choke right there, right? Most
they have any choice. They got to do it. They got to defend. If the guy who says, I'll sell for $100 million, they've got to defend it. That's how it is. So they're stuck. And I say, but the good news for you is that I probably will come in at about 60% of that number.
Really?
Historically, that's what I've done. And the reason why, because I know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
When you go to a big firm like that, they have a smart guy on top who says, well, this looks like a case we can work on. And then he gives out assignments to incompetent, unseasoned people who know what they're doing, who have to spend 6 times as much time to find out what's going on, but it all gets billed.
Okay.
And so all the incentives are to have as much redundancy as possible. Joe Alioto is the best trial lawyer I've ever seen. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was there. And he's just unbelievable.
Alioto and Alioto, right?
Yeah. Well, not anymore because he's died, but he was absolutely the best I'd ever seen. And his rule was, if you have more than 3 pieces of paper in your case and you're a plaintiff, you're going to lose. And I feel the same way about lawyers, because the more lawyers you have, the information gets dispersed and no one has comprehensive information.
Right.
And so if you're on the plaintiff side or the defense side, you want as small and tight-knit a piece of group as you can get.
Right.
But the big firm incentives are for the
opposite
smart guy to have 8,000 cases with 40,000 associates running around, and he never knows anything that's going on. And so that's, so I bring a little different take on it to the party.
So you think if a budget by, say, a big law defense firm is $8 million, with whatever number of people, probably at least 3x to 5x the number of people that you would put on a case, which would just be you and maybe a couple of associates.
Yeah.
You think you'll come in at 60% of that budget?
I'll come in at $5 million. If they got $8 million, I'll come in at 5.
Okay. So
that's what that's not an absolute rule, but that's what I would expect.
But it's not because what you're saying, it's not because your hourly rate is that different. It's because the hours you actually bill will be fewer, right?
Right. Because I'm much more efficient where I want to go.
Because your hourly rate is probably similar, which is close to $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
I think rates are high, but
I think rates are embarrassing.
They're embarrassing, right?
Embarrassing. I have one case at $1,000 an hour, and I'm not very comfortable with it. I was talking to a big firm buddy of mine, partner at a big firm. He said, well, if you were here, we'd be charging you $1,600 an hour. And I was going, that can't possibly make sense.
I get those pitches all the time from big firms that say, why don't you come over? We can probably up your hourly rate by like more than 50%.
Yeah.
But should take away a lot of freedom, right?
Right. Well,
that's the problem.
not only that, but psychological. One of my little mantras is, I'm not here. I tell people, look, I'm not here to make your problems worse. I'm here to fix them.
Right.
And when you're charging what I consider to be outlandish numbers, you're just making you're hurting them. You're torturing them.
Right.
1,000 cuts. So I don't do that. That's my take on fees. I think it's just nuts.
And is there a range of cases you prefer? Like you won't do certain cases, right? You'll do patent cases, you'll do copyright cases, trademark cases, trade secret cases.
Wait, time out. I'm very, very reluctant to get involved in trademark because most trademark stuff doesn't go anywhere. There's not enough work to do. I mean, there's not enough, they don't really fight to the death in a trademark case. Patent cases, they fight to the death because there's big money. Copyright cases that are worth taking are very few and far between. But when you get a good copyright case, it's a good case, and there's more of those than there are trademark cases, in my opinion. Trade secret cases, oftentimes you're up in state court, and it's a whole different culture, and it's a whole lot different thing, and it costs way too much money, and it's all he said and she said. So it's 50 depositions, and it's going through everybody's emails. I mean, I had one that was just, in fact, what we did, we both sides agreed. We had, remember Danny Furness at Townsend?
Yeah.
Danny and my father sat next to each other when they were engineers. And I knew Danny since grade school. And we had a case, and we had warehouses of, what's the little things you plug into the
USB drives?
Yeah. We had warehouses. And we just decided that we both agreed we weren't going to do it. Because it was going to take forever. It was going to cost a shitload of money, and we were just going to live with what we could do. So that's what happens in trade secret cases.
But I was going to go broader for a second, which is you'll do a business contract dispute, you'll do other stuff, right?
Oh, I did a statutory rape case.
Wow.
For one of my baseball players. I mean, generally speaking, there are two things they have to have. It's either got to be interesting. Well, so three things. I've got to feel I can do it.
Okay.
So I have to look at this is esoteric stuff, and I know it's going to cost way too much for me to learn this. You don't really want to do it. And then if they want me to do it anyway, I say, okay, well, I just up the fee 150% because you're being stupid.
In advance, by the way, you got to pay in advance. Because you might actually get some smarts from me during the process.
Yeah. So then, the first thing is it's got to be something I think I can do. And the second thing, sort of the criteria is it's got to be, I call it litigatable. Okay. It's got to have a story that you can understand.
Okay.
Like recombinant DNA.
Right.
I would do that. It's impossible. I mean, no one understands it.
Right.
Okay? So you do that. You do it by the hour, and you'd have a long talk ahead of time saying, "Look, this is going to be a real difficult problem, and that's how it is." And then third, it's got to be kind of got to like it.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't do a lot of defense. The Jobs' quote is, "We steal it when we can." I think that's the basically primary ethic of the Silicon Valley.
Right.
Everybody's stealing all the time, and because they know that people can get away with it. And I'm not really big on representing people to help them steal from somebody else.
Right.
That doesn't appeal to me very much. So that's why I end up on the plaintiff side a lot more. Most defendants are guilty.
So your preference is plaintiff's case, good patents, deep infringement from well-heeled big corporations. Am I repeating it correctly? That's the ideal case for you? Pretty much?
Yeah, something. I like cases like between $80 and $150 million range.
Yeah.
Because you get a $600 million case or $1 billion case, you're going to do it for 10 years.
Right.
I mean, it's going to go forever.
Right.
So you get a little bit smaller and you can get things done.
Yeah.
You can't go a $20 million case because it doesn't justify itself.
So do you see yourself working for another 10, 15 years? Because you've been at this now for over 40.
It's interesting. I'm sort of thinking that I get one more, what I would call good case, and that might be the end of it. But, I closed down once about 10 years ago, and I really didn't like not having anybody to go in the morning. And so I really like having a secretary to do all my baloney for me.
And she's been with you for a long time, right?
Oh yeah, no, she's been almost the whole time.
Gosh.
And she leverages me on occasion. So I don't know what'll happen.
Well, the other thing people don't know about you is you used to be a big time surfer, right?
Well, I don't know. I used to surf a lot.
Yeah, you probably still are, right?
Oh, can't do it.
No more?
The spirit is willing, but the body is weak.
When's the last time you went surfing?
7 years ago. I quit surfing when I was 65.
And you went surfing like in the cold water of Baker Beach or right there in San Francisco?
Yeah, Ocean Beach.
Ocean Beach, right?
Yep.
And occasionally you would come out to my neck of the woods in Stinson Beach, right?
No, never surfed Stinson.
You never surf?
Surf isn't any good there.
Well, how about Bolinas? There's a lot of surfers in Bolinas.
It's all little mushy stuff. I mean, you come down. One of these days when you come back out from Florida, we'll go on Ocean Beach on a good day.
Yeah,
and you'll see the difference. It's a real different world. It's a very physical experience.
You liked it though, right? Didn't you like it?
Yeah, I used to live out by the beach for that purpose.
Right. And your daughter surfs occasionally with you, or used to, right?
She did surf occasionally, but she got busy doing other stuff a lot. She, she played basketball in college, so she got involved in playing basketball a lot.
And she's in medical school now, or she graduated?
She's graduated. She's in a fellowship at University of Michigan.
Wow, nice.
Fetal surgery.
You're going to visit Ann Arbor every once in a while.
Yeah, well, very once in a while.
I went to school there for a year. I thought it was a great experience. It was great. It was great.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, she's spoiled because she grew up in San Francisco, but it's doable. I went back there and we went to a football game. That's what you do if you go to the University of Michigan. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So is she going to get married? The last time we talked, you talked about, I won't even say.
Well, there's no marriage plan presently being presented.
There's no man worthy of her.
That's probably true. But there's certainly, she's had I've met a series of boyfriends, and she's getting closer, to something that I think makes sense.
So you and your wife are waiting for the grandkids who can take over the law firm. That's got to happen, right?
No, that's not happening. No.
Well, because you've had a family firm for many decades now, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it.
It's my daughter's fault. She went to medicine and said law.
I know. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking she comes from a family of lawyers, right? Because your wife's father was a federal judge. I remember him. Didn't he sit in Central District in Los Angeles? Because I remember being in the courthouse in the Central District because I was trained initially in a Beverly Hills firm, and we had cases in that court, and he was there. Wasn't he like the chief judge there for a while?
Oh yeah, I don't know if he was ever chief, because that's a timing issue.
Right, you
have to be chief for that. But his claim to fame was he was an intimate of Reagan.
Right.
And when Reagan used to have his kitchen cabinet go to Chasen's restaurant, he was one of those guys.
Right. And, yeah. How long did he live? I'm just curious. How long did he live? He lived to a pretty ripe age, didn't he?
101.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought in the back of my mind, I thought he lived a pretty ripe age.
It was pretty tough at the end, though.
That's an interesting story because when your daughter said, "I'm going to go into medicine," did you try to persuade her? No, you got to do law.
Well, no, actually, it was pretty. She's dyslexic.
Oh, okay.
And it's hard for her to read.
Okay.
I mean, she can read. I mean, it's not like she can't read.
Right.
It's more effort.
Right.
So she never really warmed up to the idea of going to law.
Okay. Interesting.
And also, she wanted to cut things. What can I tell you?
Oh, is she a surgeon? Is she going to be a surgeon? What kind of surgery?
She's going to apply for a pediatric surgery residence.
Wow.
She doesn't know if she'll get it, but that's what she wants to do.
Nice.
And yeah, it's sort of funny. When she was in grade school, she wanted to be a veterinarian. And then right around high school, she said, it's too sad to cut up animals. I'd rather cut up people.
That's good. And your wife was supportive of her going to medical school.
Yeah, she was supportive of whatever she wanted to do. If she wanted to go and be a hippie in Hawaii, she would have supported that too. So
that's good. It's huge. In the meantime, we've run the course of the podcast.
We're out of time.
We're out of time. But that's
Excellent.
okay, because we can do it again once you file whatever case you're going to file that hits the newspaper, and I'm worthy to hear about it, and the rest of the audience is worthy to hear about it, because Ed, you've been around for over 45 years in San Francisco, maybe longer than that, right? In total. And your firm's been around for over 40 years. So congratulations, because a lot of lawyers don't make it that long. They quit, they get drunk, they do stupid things, they lose their health. You've done it.
Some of that applies to me.
and what I can say certifiably to anyone, Ed will make you laugh while you're paying him big money.
We will have some fun. There's no doubt. In fact, I do. That's part of my gig. I say, look, you're going to get good work. I think we're going to win this thing, and we're going to have some fun.
And what I will say to the end of court, let Ed do the annual musical with some stand-up comedy, because he will put that Inn of Court on the map, the Silicon Valley Inn of Court.
I don't think we'll do that, but that's okay.
Hey, Ed, thanks for spending the time with me. I'll talk to you again. Take care, okay?
Thank you. Adios.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.